Hello and welcome to Miraculous Fitness. I have finally come up with the video that's been most requested in my channel, which is the science behind fat loss. Actually, the most requested video is tips for losing fat, but I believe that the science behind fat loss is twice as important for you to understand, because unless you understand how the science works, whatever tips that you gather from the outside world, you will not be able to incorporate in your lifestyle. So I believe that this video is very important, so I'd like to urge you to leave whatever information that you know about nutrition at the door, and for the next 15 to 20 minutes I want you to focus on this video, on the contents of this video, because this is more updated science. Now, why do I think this video is important? Even before moving on, before starting the video, I'd like to clear out one thing. That is, number one, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm not a dietitian. So whatever information that I present to you today is part of my own personal journey. I have an interest for learning about nutrition. I do it as a side hobby, and I've lost around 30 kilos over the last 1 year. So I believe that I know enough about nutrition to be making a presentation on this, and for this presentation to be credible. Now, what's the whole point of learning all of this? Why would you want to learn all of this? The thing is, dieting, the traditional forms of dieting is very inflexible. It's very strict, okay? There are some myths in the fitness industry where you have to have 3 meals of salads a day. You can only have greens throughout your day. You have to do cardio an hour per day. You can't have a slice of pizza or a muffin. You know, all of these are very outdated science. And as long as you understand the framework behind what goes on, you'll be able to better incorporate all of what I just said into your training regimen. Okay, now let's begin. What does fat loss boil down into? There's only one simple thing. Everything about fat loss boils down to one simple thing. That's a caloric deficit. As long as you're at a caloric deficit, you will burn fat. End of. Now you might be thinking, it surely isn't as simple as that. There may be more nuances to this. Yes, there is, but one simple golden rule of thumb is as long as you're in a caloric deficit, you will be burning fat. Now, what's the formula? Now, to begin with, what are calories? Calories is basically energy. It is what provides your body. It acts as fuel for your body. So whatever food that you consume acts as calories. Whatever food that you consume has a certain number of calories, and those calories provide your body with energy. Now, there are two units that are being used. Number one is kilojoules, which is the unit of energy, and the second one is calories. Both are interchangeable. One small rule of thumb is 4.2 kilojoules of energy equals 1 kilocalories. So every time you need to convert, just keep this in mind. 4.2 kilojoules equals 1 kilocalories. That means approximately 1000 kilojoules would be around 240 kilocalories. So this is how you can have a rough eyeballing of counting your calories. Now, what's the main equation of all of this? The main equation is net caloric intake equals calories in, that's the food that you consume, minus calories out, or the caloric expenditure, which is your activity levels, which is the energy that you burn. That's calories in minus calories out. Now, the only way you could be at a caloric deficit is if your calories out, the energy that you burn, is greater than the energy that you consume. If the energy that you consume is greater than the energy that you burn, you will be at a caloric surplus. That means you will gain weight or you will gain fat. If you are at a caloric deficit, which means that the calories that you burn is greater than the calories that you consume, you'll be at a caloric deficit. When you're at a caloric deficit, your body starts burning fuel, and your body then moves on to burning fat. So, how does this process work? Our body has primarily two sources of fuel. Okay, number one is glycogen, which is your primary source of fuel, and the second one is fat, which is a secondary source of fuel. Now, the secondary source of fuel is stored fat. Your body does not readily use fat. Okay, your body first uses your primary source of fuel. Once it has run out of its primary source of fuel, which is glycogen, then your body moves on to your stored fat. which is your secondary source of fuel. So imagine your body as your house. So every house needs to be powered through electricity. Okay? Once this electricity runs out, if there's a power outage, your home then resorts to your secondary source of fuel, which is your generator. Okay? Keep in mind that the generator, the secondary source of fuel, never gets tapped into unless your primary source of fuel runs out. So unless the electricity from your power grids run out, your body never switches from the primary source to a secondary source. So it only moves into your fat burning oxidation when your glycogen levels are depleted. So how does this work? How does this process work? So imagine that your body is made up of different muscle tanks. Now what do I mean by muscle tanks? Imagine your bicep is a fuel tank. Imagine that your tricep is a fuel tank. Imagine that your chest is a fuel tank. Imagine that your back is a fuel tank. So different parts of your body act as fuel tanks to store energy. Now your primary source of fuel is glycogen. So whenever you intake food, your body converts that food into glycogen and your muscles start storing glycogen. So whenever you're eating food, you're storing glycogen. Now your body will only move on to a fat burning process when you can deplete your glycogen. Now this depletion of glycogen from your muscle only takes place when you're at a caloric deficit. A caloric deficit means that your body now demands more energy, so your body will start looking into different parts to burn that energy to provide your body for energy, because your body still has to function at the end of the day, right? So when you're in a caloric deficit, your muscle will slowly start to lose glycogen. When you lose glycogen, when all your muscles are depleted of glycogen, your body still needs more energy if you're still at a caloric deficit. Then your body moves on to your secondary source of fuel, which is stored fats. Now men and women store fats in different parts of their body. Men store fats mainly on their abdomen, on their chest, a little bit on their back. But women store fat on their triceps, on their glutes, on their thighs. So it depends from the anatomy of a male and an anatomy of a female body differs, but we store fats at the end of the day. And once we deplete our muscles out of glycogen, our body moves into a fat burning process and starts burning fat off of, say, your abdomen, your thighs, etc., etc. Depends where you store your body fat. Now, how can you how can you reach a greater caloric deficit? This is the equation. Your net caloric intake is equal to calories in minus calories out. So you want to minimize your calories in as much as possible, and you want to maximize your caloric expenditure. So calories in is very simple. It's the food that you consume. So the only way that you can minimize it is by reducing or limiting the food that you take in. Now, for a male body, your maintenance calories, the maintenance calories is the amount of calories that you consume per day that will help you maintain your weight. Say if for a male body, if say the maintenance calories is 2000 calories, if you consume 2000 calories per day, you won't gain weight, you won't lose weight, you won't lose fat, you won't gain fat. Okay? So as long as you can limit your calories, say to around 1600 calories. So if you're at a 400 calorie deficit, if your maintenance calories is say 2000 calories and your deficit is at 1600 calories, if you consume 1600 calories per day, you're now restricting your calories and you're at caloric deficit. Now the counterpart is true. We want to maximize our caloric expenditure. And in order to do so, there are 3 ways that we burn calories. Number 1 is your resting metabolism. Now what is a resting metabolism? Resting metabolism is when you're carrying out no activity whatsoever. So even when I'm sleeping, I'm still burning calories because I have muscles in my body that require energy to sustain. So that's your resting metabolism. Now you can't control resting metabolism in the short run, so you should keep this factor out in the short run for now. The other 2 things that you can vary and that you can control are cardio and weight training. So you see how cardio and weight training has no direct influence on fat burning process. Cardio and weight training, so cardio will help you burn more calories, and if your calories in is lower than your calories out and you're burning more calories through cardio, you're at a greater caloric deficit, which allows for you to lose more fat. So at the end of the day, everything boils down to a net caloric deficit. You want to be at a caloric deficit. And the same goes for weight training. When you're weight training, you're putting on more muscles, and these muscles need more energy to sustain themselves. And when you build more muscle, they need more energy to sustain themselves. Therefore, you just burn more calories. So this is how you can tweak your calories out. So you want to maximize your calories out, you want to increase your activity level, and you want to limit the calories that you take in. Now, moving on to our fifth point, there's one small thing that I want all of you to understand. One small golden rule of thumb. That is, losing weight does not mean that you will lose fat. But losing fat means that you will lose weight. I'll say this one more time. Listen carefully. Losing weight does not mean that you will lose fat, but when you lose fat, it means that you will lose weight. So our primary target is to lose fat. And I'll tell you why. Our body is made up of 5 components mainly. 1, bones. 2, organs, muscles, water, and then fat. Alright? Now, you cannot lose weight from your bones, and you cannot lose weight from your organs. The only ways that you can lose your weight from is muscle, water, and fat. So initially, when you're on a diet, and remember when I talked about glycogen depletion from your muscles? Each gram of glycogen holds 2 to 3 grams of water. So this is what is called water retention. Our body, an adult body, is made up of around 60% of water. So what happens is, when we deplete our glycogen, with our glycogen, we lose a lot of water as well. With every gram of glycogen that we lose 2 to 3 grams of water. So initially, whatever weight that you lose will be due to a loss in water and glycogen. It has nothing to do with fat. It's only when you completely deplete your glycogen levels, it is then that your body moves into your fat burning process and you start losing fat. Believe me, over my whole 30 kilo loss, I probably lost around 10 kilo of fat. The rest 20 kilo were glycogen and water. So you see how even burning 5 kilos of fat is a large difference. You want to make sure that your body fat percentage goes down. Your weight may necessarily not change, but when you burn fat, you will lose weight. But when you lose weight, it does not necessarily mean you lose fat. It may also mean you're losing muscle and water. So this is one key thing that you need to keep in mind. Our target is to burn fat. So we must first deplete our glycogen levels. That will lose a bit of water from our body. Our weight will decrease for a while. And then our body will move on to fat burning process, which will further decrease our weight. So we want the end bit. We want the fat loss at the end bit. This is where the end bit is where the fat loss occurs. Now, it's very important that you understand 1 to 5. This is because this is the science. This is the framework. So next time a dietitian comes to you and gives you a meal plan, he or she will not explain to you the science behind any of this. He or she will prescribe a certain meal plan that already has a caloric deficit taken into account. So he or she may give you a very strict plan and say, okay, have vegetables in the morning, have 2 eggs, have this much of rice, have this much of chicken. That's prescribed, but you don't know the science up until now. Now that you know the science, now that you know how to count your calories, now that you know what a calorie deficit is, next time when you're at a relative's house, you can go and have a slice of pizza, right? Once a week, you can have a slice of pizza or even 2 slices of pizza. As long as you count the calories that the 2 slices of pizza has and you integrate it into your diet and you refrain from eating too much that day, you can still have pizza. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're at a caloric deficit, you're still burning fat. So it doesn't matter what you eat. This might be new to you, but you can even have pizza every day and still lose weight. If you're at a caloric deficit, you will still lose weight and fat. I wouldn't recommend going down that route because we not only want to lose fat from our body, but we also want to move into a healthier lifestyle. We want to make sure our cardiovascular health is good. We want to make sure our blood pressure is low. We want to make sure our blood sugar is low. We want to move into a generally more healthier lifestyle. Now that you understand 1 to 5, now that you understand the framework behind how fat loss works, I will provide some very small general tips. which I'll make a separate video on later on to more further extend the tips in this video. But just to give you a short backstory about what I did to lose my 30 kilos of weight, I use intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is when I fasted for 16 hours and then I limited all my calories within a short 8-hour window. By doing that, I was able to get bigger meals in, right? I had less number of meals, but I had bigger meals. And that helped me keep satiated during the day. So I wasn't very hungry because I was only eating within that 8-hour window and I was having large meals and I was feeling satiated. I combined that with a low carb diet. I didn't incorporate much carbohydrates in my diet because remember, carbohydrates is glycogen and our main point is to refrain from glycogen as much as possible because we want to deplete our muscles out of glycogen. We don't want to add more glycogen to our muscles. So I combined a low carb diet with intermittent fasting and that helped me lose a lot of glycogen and water in the beginning. I dropped weight and then I started burning a lot of fat. Now, secondly, I was at a caloric deficit. I would recommend a caloric deficit of around 300 to 400 calories. Now, the important thing is you must first find out what your maintenance calories is. The way you can find it is you can do a quick Google search by saying daily caloric intake or daily activity level calorie calculator. It'll be a calculator and it'll ask you 5 to 6 questions. It'll ask you about your activity level. It'll ask you about your diet. It'll ask you about height, age, gender, all of that. You put that information in and it'll give you a rough maintenance calories. So say for a male body, it gives you a rough maintenance calories of 2000 calories. That means if you eat 2000 calories, you will not gain fat, you will not lose fat. So in order to lose fat, you must be at a caloric deficit. In order to do so, take roughly around 300 to 400 calories away from your maintenance calories. So if your maintenance calories is say 2000 calories, make sure your diet is around 1600 calories. It's around a 400 calorie deficit, and once you do that, you will start losing fat. And then also, my diet was a low carb, high protein diet. It was a protein rich diet. And the way you can control how much protein you need to take, you can measure it. And a general rule of thumb is 1.1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. So say an example would be if your body weight is 150 pounds, you should roughly take around 165 grams of protein. And then lastly, I combine it with weight training. I believe weight training is very important, 3 to 4 times a week. This is because you want to add muscle along the way. Once you add more muscle, remember, it is one of the primary ways that you can control your caloric expenditure. Once you put on more muscle, you will burn more calories, and once you do that, your metabolism will increase, and when that happens, you will be at a greater caloric deficit with the same amount of food intake. And once that happens, when you're at a greater caloric deficit, you end up losing more fat. Now, these are some of the things that I did. I believe that you should watch this video one more time to completely wrap around some of these concepts, because I will be linking all of my future videos to this science loss video, this science-based fat loss video, because I want all of you to refer to this video. This will be our framework moving forward. And once you understand all of this, any tip that I give you or any tip that you get from anybody, any other YouTuber, any other dietitian, physician, whatever, you will be able to understand why they're prescribing you or why they're advising you in a certain manner. Hope you've enjoyed the video, hope you've learned some very key concepts, and hope that has replaced some of your myths, some of your preconceived notions about fitness, about strict dieting. Dieting is flexible as long as you understand the nuances behind it, as long as you understand the science behind it. And you can integrate and you can tweak your own diet if you understand all of these concepts. If you've liked the video, do drop a like. Comment down below on any suggestions, any questions, or if you're afraid of putting a comment down below, I will link my Instagram link. Go to my Instagram link, shoot me a DM, and I'll be happy to respond to any of your questions. And do share my video. If you like this content, do give me a shout out on your Instagram page. Do tag my channel, Mirage Fitness, so that it helps share across many more people. And even if you're not obese or overweight yourself, do keep this information in mind, because we all have that one relative. It could be our parents, it could be our grandparents. We have relatives in our family, in our distant family, who are also overweight, and you can help them guide their fat loss journey if you know this information. Hope you've liked the video, and until next time, peace.